let's talk about the newest Bella Beaute Bar palette, the Ocean Jewel palette. Love this cover, really fun and reflective of this color story. And this is such a beautiful color story. We have some pops, some brighter shades down here. We also have some deepening up shades, and I love that there is so much depth in this palette, and I feel like you can create quite a variety of different looks with it. And this is definitely my kind of color story. I love these kinds of tones together. I love blues, greens, teals, purples, and there are a couple of neutrals as well, so there's a lot of versatility in this palette. When I first saw the inside color story of this palette, it actually reminded me of the, I believe this was the holiday palette from 2022, and it is the Bejeweled palette. So I will be showing you some swatch comparisons there. There are a couple of mattes and shimmers that I thought looked a little bit kind of similar, but definitely feel like the newer version, the Ocean Jewel palette, is kind of like an elevated version and much more of a brighter version of the Bejeweled palette. And I did receive this palette in PR, so thank you so much to Bella Beaute Bar for sending it over to me, and I do have an affiliate code which I will put up on the screen. Thank you so much if you do use my code. And this palette is launching May 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and it will retail for $75, so it is right in the same price range as the most recent palette, Smoky Glam, and the others that are this size. I'm going to be showing you detailed swatches of the shimmer shades, and then I'll show you 2 looks at the palette, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video, so let's get right into it. I'm going to be swatching these 2 at a time. Here is Heart of the Ocean and Colorful Moon, and this one is super silky smooth black base jeweled multi-chrome, and this one has just a little bit more of a slightly more piecey kind of texture to it. It does move around in the pan a bit from pressure, but not really in like it doesn't feel really emollient like some other shades I've tried. And also swatching it, I don't feel that it's really creamy. So I think it's just maybe a little bit loosely pressed in there. So this is a really beautiful, vibrant indigo blue shade with a black base. You can see it's more metallic than shiny and sparkly like Colorful Moon, and it shifts to a purple to a magenta, and it shifts all the way to almost like a burgundy at a super harsh angle. Colorful Moon has a light blue reflect with a reddish brown base to it, and it shifts to purple to magenta. Nacre and Shark's Eye, you can see a slight texture difference and a finish difference between the two. They both feel very smooth. Shark's Eye has a little bit of an emollient feeling to it. And this shade is just super, super smooth, really, really metallic and reflective. And then Shark's Eye has almost a little bit more of a tug to it, and it does have a dark gray base. And I feel like if you want less of the dark bay grace, you'll have to build it up. Yeah, it definitely feels a little bit thicker to the touch. So Nacre is just a really beautiful, vibrant aqua, while Shark's Eye has more of a tealish tone to it with some green flecks throughout it. But you can really only see those kind of up close. And they do both share a very, very similar shift to a beautiful purple. And it's a little bit darker in Shark's Eye, probably because of the gray base. But I feel like these are a little bit similar. Next shade is Abalone and Nautilus. And Abalone has a little bit more of a texture, and it picks up a little bit more flaky and slightly uneven. It also does move around in the pan, and so does Nautilus. I definitely think that both of these potentially will crease on me. I think Abalone maybe a little bit less. I think part of the reason it moves around in the pan is because of the flaky size. It does feel just a little bit thicker to swatch, but it doesn't feel overly pasty. And then Nautilus, I'm going to try to place it below the staining I had from the previous swatch. And this one is a beautiful, almost more like an iridescent, even though it looks like it's an aqua. So it's very, very lime green, kind of straight on, with just a little bit of a yellowish base to it. And it shifts to a stunning blue. Abalone is a pink with a purple violet reflect to it. And the last 2 shades are Mother of Pearl and Oyster. I love these shades. These are so, so, so beautiful. Oyster does pick up just slightly more textured, and these are both going to be for sure like shades you can sheer out. This one you can see already there's some hollow particles in there. They do seem like they're slightly larger size and not like evenly dispersed throughout. And then I'm going to try to do just a lighter application of Oyster first and then layer it up. But look at that one. It is so, so stunning. I feel like the camera's not really capturing how beautifully glowy purple blue it is. Let me add another layer to both of them. But these are just beautiful, more like topper-like shades, but can also be more opaque. Mother of Pearl has a pink reflect with hollow flecks throughout it, shifting to like a pale yellow to lime green. Oyster is blue purple with some pink flecks throughout it. It's a very dimensional shade. I see just a little bit of a base maybe in there on an angle. It's a little bit olivey, but it's super light and it shifts to purple. And then here's the close-up of the hollow, and then the close-up of these different sparkles throughout it. You can really see there's like the pink, the blue, purple. Taking luminescence for the first look, and I'm gonna put it on the outer corner and connect my lower lash line just a little bit. And then I'm just kind of blending it outwards. I want to keep it too much from here because I'm going to be putting down Shipwreck. And I just don't want it to be like there's too much eyeshadow down already. So I'm really just trying to kind of feather this out. And I'm bringing it up in here a little bit. I'm going to wipe off the brush and I'm taking Sea Glass right next to it. And I'm just kind of popping that down. Super pigmented. Love it. Even with a more kind of fluffy, flimsier type of blending brush. Like it's not dense. So next I'm taking Shipwreck on the Makeup Shack T63 brush. And I'm just popping that out here on the outer corner. Kind of laying it down first. And just kind of trying to connect it on the around my outer corner. And then I'm slowly going to start blending it out into the lime green. I'm going to go back in with a little bit more and just kind of pack that on. And just blend a little bit and then like kind of pack on and just go in between those two motions back and forth. And then just pack on a little bit on the very outer corner. And I'm going to go back into the other brush I was using and back with a little bit more luminescence, but just like the tiniest bit, just to blend this out further on the edges. Picking up Nautilus on this silicone applicator, and that's going to predominantly go right in the center of my lid and bridge onto the outer corner just a little bit. And I'm just going with a little bit more, definitely avoiding any sort of fallout this way. And I'm also blending it up into my crease a little bit because it will end up there anyway. And then for the inner part, I think I'm going to go in with Mother of Pearl, which is going to be a little interesting because it does have a pinky reflect to it, but I just really want to see what it looks like as like an inner corner highlight a little bit. I think that goes well with it. It adds like a little bit different kind of tone to the look. Here is the first finished look. I've had it on for about maybe tops half an hour, and you can already see there's creasing happening with this center shade, which I definitely was expecting to. And I mean, which is pretty quick after applying it. I can smooth it out, but I don't really want to have to smooth out my eyeshadow every 30 minutes. So I don't really mind creasing, but as long as it doesn't happen that quickly. So I'm definitely going to have to be pretty careful where I put that specific shimmer. Here's the finished look. For the second look, I really want to use Oyster. So I'm going to take Starfish first. This is the Refer 01 Mini. And I'm just going to kind of swoop it onto the inner corner, but kind of like right here so that I'm distributing this way versus if I went in here, it would be the most opaque on the inner corner, which I don't necessarily want there. And I'm taking Fleur de la Mar, and I'm just gonna put that on this outer half of my crease and kind of blend it out into a V shape. I love these kinds of tones. These kinds of purples are just my favorite to work with. I think that came out really nicely. And then I'm taking the Refer 13 and I'm picking up Submerged and I'm gonna deepen out this outer corner with it. Just kind of first tapping it on to get it down onto the lid, get the product down, and then slowly blending it out. I do think this is blending a bit easier than on the other side, and I think that just has to do with the fact that the shade Luminescence is so neon, so it's kind of more like a different kind of pressed pigment. And that's kind of been my experience in general. So next I really want to use Oyster, but I do want to overlay it over Starfish. So I'm actually going to extend Starfish all over the lid. And look at that. I mean, that's a look in itself. So I'm going to use just my finger for this. So picked it up on my pinky. Oh, it's so dimensional and so sparkly. It's so pretty. And I'm just kind of tapping it on and pressing it into my lid. And that is so, so pretty. It's very glowy. And here's the second finished look. This eye looks fine. No sign of creasing yet. And I love the way that all the different sparkles hit the light. So there's 7 total multichromes, one of which is a holochrome, which is the one right here. So you're getting a lot of special shimmers in here, and there is one duochrome, which is definitely reflected in the price tag. This is such an inspiring color story. I just feel like there's so many looks that come to mind every time I look at this palette. Like I just did 3 looks and I could easily do 10, 15 more like off the top of my head because I just love all the shades in here. I think it's a really well curated color story. I love the 4 deepening up shades. I feel like it's just a great balance to help with some of these brighter tones, and of course I love me purples and blues together. I also really like that there's these 2 neutral mattes. I feel like they're the perfect tone in this palette. I think if they had been warmer I would feel a little bit less excited about them, but they're almost kind of like neutral maybe, and they fit really well into this predominantly cooler tone color story. The mattes performed so beautifully, right on par with the brand's other palettes. The brighter 2 shades down here had a lot of opacity, and so did the more kind of pastel-y shades. So I do very much enjoy Bella Beaute Bar's mattes overall. I think they're really, really easy to use. You can go in with a little more of a heavier hand, maybe pick up a little bit more on the brush, and you will get more color impact upon application, or you can go in with a little bit less and you can build it up. I really love mattes that have that flexibility, and they also build on each other really nicely. I would like to point out that these shades that are almost kind of neon, in general, if I put down too much of these kinds of shades and then I put a darker matte on top, I do sometimes run into issues of them having a little bit of a harder time blending together because this pigment is so bright. So it tends to be a different kind of pigment because of the brightness. So moving on to the shimmers, I think there's a great variety of some that are a little bit more opaque, a little bit more topper-like, a little bit more buildable. We don't really have a true iridescent, but I do think these 2 kind of act as an iridescent, so they're very, very sheer and but can be built up and also layered over the mattes to really bring out the colors. Now, I really like that none of these are super, super flaky. Now, there is one shade specifically, Abalone, which is just a little bit more chunky, but it's pretty easy to smooth out because it does have just a little bit more of a slickness to it, so it just smooths out nicely. The flakes don't really kind of move around too much. That being said, it did swatch just a little bit unevenly, so I feel like this one is a shade that I would most likely recommend just kind of tapping on first and building it up that way versus swiping it on. I absolutely love Oyster and Mother of Pearl. I think these are standout beautiful shades in this palette. The moment I saw them, I was like, what even can I compare this to? Because they are so unique and so stunning, and especially this one paired with the periwinkles on the purples is just a 10 out of 10. Now, when I did the first look with this shade, I did have some creasing within the first 25 minutes, which I was definitely expecting because some of these shades are just a little bit creamier, a little bit more squishy and emollient. Not like overly squishy, not to the point where they're sticky, so I will have to press a tissue into them just to make them more usable because I do have hooded oily lids, so that is something to keep in mind. If you have lids like me and you tend to have issues with creasing, especially with some of these more emollient kinds of shadows. The second look, I didn't have any creasing within the first hour. I did end up having to take the look off though, so I haven't fully wear tested these, but usually if an eyeshadow doesn't crease on me within the first 30 minutes, it's a pretty good sign. An hour later, I don't mind if I get a little bit of creasing throughout the day and I can just tap it out. I just don't want the creasing to happen like almost immediately because realistically speaking, I just can't keep up with making sure I'm blending out my eyeshadow every 30 minutes to an hour. So that is definitely a concern of mine. On the lids right now, I have this shade as the eyeshadow wing, the shade a little bit just on the outer corner here, and then the colorful moon shade on the lid just in the center part of my lid. And I really, really love this look. It was super easy. I did use my finger to apply the shade. It moves around in the pan, but it really feels like the pigment itself is moving around, but it's not like it moving around where it's squishy. It is just such a beautiful summery kind of palette, and even going into fall and winter. So let me know in the comments below if you're interested in this palette. Also let me know which of the eye looks was your favorite. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy this kind of content and you love watching shiny, shifty, sparkly eyeshadows being swatched as well as eyeshadow tutorials, then I will have some of my other videos up on the screen so you can check them out. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.